What if the men's War Games match had stayed as a 4v4? Well, if Seth Rollins and Bronson Reed never got involved, I believe Rollins and Reed would end up facing off in a street fight at Survivor Series, with Reed getting his win back and ultimately putting the feud to bed. But what would both men do after this? Well, tell me, should WWE set up a fourth wrestling show? Well, I believe they should either reboot WCW or announce a new show that would allow more talent to shine, such as Baron Corbin and Gallus, along with many others. But do you agree? Well, tell me. What's next for Apollo Crews? Well, following Survivor Series, I believe he should begin to rebuild himself as an arrogant heel on SmackDown who thinks he's better than everyone, which would lead to him facing off against LA Knight close to the Royal Rumble. But would he win? Well, tell me. What if the Banger Bros never broke up? Well, if they stayed as a duo leading into WrestleMania, I believe that once Gunter retains, that Sheamus and Drew McIntyre would set their sights on the tag team division, with them dethroning Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn at Money in the Bank for only the SmackDown tag team titles after they both got drafted to the Blue Round in this timeline. But tell me, what if Batista has one more match? Well, if he decided to come out of retirement, I would love to see him feud with Drew McIntyre, as a segment between the two would be gold. But who do you think Batista should feud with if he had one more match? Well, tell me. What if Bayley becomes the inaugural Women's United States Champion? Well, the only way I could see this happening is if Bayley turns heel on Naomi or Michin in the finals, setting up their program, although I believe Michin should be the one to ultimately dethrone Bayley at WrestleMania 41. But do you agree? Well, tell me. Who is the best face of Foley? Is it Cactus Jack? Is it Dude Love? Or is it Mankind? Well, tell me. What if Braun Strowman had dethroned Brock Lesnar? Well, had this happened at No Mercy, I believe Braun would be a dominant and fighting champion, as he'd face the likes of Samoa Joe and Finn Balor, although he'd eventually lose to Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 34. But tell me, what if Chad Gable had dethroned Gunter for the Intercontinental Championship? Well, this happened when Gable was at his peak in babyface popularity. I believe he would have been a fighting champion and have programs to the likes of Bronson Reed and Shinsuke Nakamura, although he started to mistreat his Alpha Academy teammates due to them losing matches left, right and centre. Although Otis would finally snap at Gable, setting up their WrestleMania match, with Otis dethroning the Shushmaster. But tell me, what if CM Punk had returned in Saudi Arabia? Well, if he was in the Fatal 4-Way to determine who will face Gunter, I believe he would have won and gone on to face the Ring General in what will be a technical masterclass at Survivor Series. But who would win? Well, tell me. What if Thomas Tuchel had dethroned Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill at Crown Jewel? Well, if this did happen, I believe Kyrie and Io would enter into a feud with Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez, which would lead to them losing the belts, although Io would dethrone Liv for the Women's World Championship thanks to her returning Rhea Ripley. But tell me, who should dethrone Liv Morgan? Well, due to Rhea Ripley's injury, I believe Lyra Valkyria should beat Liv thanks to Rhea screwing the now former Women's Champion over, which can allow for two huge WrestleMania programs to be built, them being Rhea Ripley vs Liv Morgan and Io Sky vs Lyra Valkyria. But do you agree? Well, tell me. Who should dethrone Roxanne Perez? Well, although Julia is a good option, I believe Stephanie Vaquer would be the best option to beat Roxy, as the win can cause tension between Stephanie and Julia, which would set up their future clash. But what would Roxanne do after this? Well, tell me. What if DIY turns heel? Well, if Johnny Gargano turns vicious like Ciampa, I believe this would set up a World Tag Team Championship match between them and the Motor City Machine Guns at Saturday night's main event. But who would win? Would we see new champions? Well, I want your opinion. So tell me, what if Dominic Mysterio had become #1 contender for the World Heavyweight Championship? Well, if this did happen, I believe that Dominic would fail in spectacular fashion to defeat the Ring General, which would make Finn Balor a very angry man. But tell me, could Gunter ever become babyface? Well, I believe that the only way this could happen is if Ludwig Kaiser turns on Gunter, resulting in a temporarily babyface Ring General, although following his program with Ludwig, he would turn into a tweener and be a mutual destroyer. But tell me, who should compete in the 2025 Iron Survivor matches? Well, in the women's division, with Sol Ruka already confirmed for the match, I believe Stephanie Vaquer, Julia, Zarya and Tatum Paxley should join her, with Stephanie Vaquer ultimately punching her ticket to stand and deliver. But what about the men's division? Well, if Wesley also confirmed for Deadline, I believe Ethan Page, Nathan Frazier, Javon Evans and a returning Oba Femi should join the lineup, unless Oba is going to the main roster, in which Josh Briggs should replace him, and the men's winner would either be Oba, or if he's not on the match, I believe Wesley should end up being the Iron Survivor. But would the Iron Survivors be able to win Championship Gold at Stand and Deliver? Well, tell me. Who should be Jacob Fatu's first singles opponent? Well, in my opinion, I believe Kevin Owens will be the perfect man to oppose Jacob Fatu, which could take place at Saturday night's main event, or the Royal Rumble. But who would win? Well, tell me. What if Jacy Jayne had become the NXT Women's North American Champion? Well, had she been the one to dethrone Kalani Jordan, I believe she'd be an unfortunate transitional champion, as she'd lose to Zarya shortly after her win, and due to this loss, she would be kicked out of Fatal Influence and reformed Toxic Attraction with Gigi Dolan, which would set up a very solid tag team rivalry. But tell me, what if Jade Cargill never got injured? Well, firstly, get better soon, Jade, and secondly, I believe that if she continued her reign alongside Bianca Belair, that cracks would begin to form in the duo, with Belair eliminating Cargill from the Women's Royal Rumble. Then after this, Damage Control would dethrone the Dream Team. But who would turn heel after the match? Well, tell me, what if Jey Uso didn't reunite with the OG Bloodline? Well, I believe that if he didn't get involved in Bloodline business, then he could have successfully defended his Intercontinental Championship against Braun Breaker. And following this, he would have entertaining programs against the likes of Sheamus and Pete Dunne, although he'd eventually lose to Dirty Dominic Mysterio. But who would dethrone Dom Dom? Well, tell me, what if Carl Anderson never got injured? Well, firstly, get better soon, Carl, and secondly, I believe that the OC would continue to be big threats in the NXT Tag Team division, as they would be the ones to dethrone Axiom after a fantastic match at Stand and Deliver. But tell me, what if Kalani Jordan never lost her NXT Women's North American Championship? Well, had she retained against all of Fatal Influence, I believe she would have been assaulted after the match by Zarya, setting up their title match on the ECW Special Edition of NXT, with Zarya being the one to dethrone Kalani. But who dethroned Zarya? Well, tell me, what if Kevin Owens dethrones Cody Rhodes at Saturday night's main event? Well, if this does happen, I believe it would be because of Randy Orton turning on Cody, setting up the WrestleMania match. But where would this leave Kevin Owens? Well, at the biggest show of the year, Sami Zayn should get his moment in the sun and finally become WWE Champion by defrauding his longtime best friend turned enemy. But tell me, what if Carmelo Hayes had dethroned LA Knight at Crown Jewel? Well, I believe that his Survivor Series program will be against Andrade, and following this, he'd run the division for months, although he'd eventually lose the championship to Austin Theory at WrestleMania 41. But who do you think would dethrone Melo? Well, tell me, what if Speedball Mike Bailey signs with WWE? Well, if he does, I believe he would go to NXT and instantly begin feuding with Ethan Page, and after this, he would dethrone Tony D'Angelo for the NXT North American Championship and begin feuding with Javon Evans. But tell me, what if the Montreal Screwjob never happened? Well, had Bret Hart retained at Survivor Series, I believe he would have signed a short-term deal with WWE, which would allow for the Hitman to drop the WWE title to Stone Cold at WrestleMania 14. But if he didn't sign a short-term deal, then I think The Undertaker would have dethroned him shortly after, with Shawn taking the belt from the Dead Man at the Royal Rumble. But which of these scenarios would you prefer? Well, tell me, what if Naomi had dethroned Nia Jax? Well, following War Games, I believe Bayley would turn heel on Naomi, setting up their match at Saturday night's main event, with Naomi retaining. Although after the match, her reign would end all thanks to Tiffany Stratton cashing in her Money in the Bank briefcase. But tell me, what if Survivor Series didn't feature War Games in 2024? Well, to replace the War Games matches, I believe the Bloodline vs Team Bloodline would have still happened in a 4v4 capacity, although it would have been held as a traditional Survivor Series match. And on the women's side of things, I think Io Sky would have taken on Liv Morgan, with her returning Rhea Ripley screwing Liv over, with Io becoming the new Women's World Champion. But tell me, what if NXT talent get called up due to Raw's transition to Netflix? Well, in my opinion, I believe Obafemi and Fraxium should be the primary call-ups alongside a returning Noam Dar. But who else would be called up? Well, tell me, what if Obafemi goes to the main roster? Well, if he does, I believe he should debut at the Royal Rumble, then after that, he should make another impact on the main roster by attacking the then new United States Champion Carmelo Hayes, setting up the WrestleMania program with Oba defrauding Melo and beginning what would more than likely be a monstrous reign. But who would dethrone Oba? Well, tell me, what if Obafemi stays in NXT? Well, if he does, I believe he should be the Iron Survivor and dethrone Trick Williams at Stand and Deliver before holding the championship for a full year before dropping it at 2026's Stand and Deliver before getting called up to the main roster. But who would beat Oba? Well, tell me, what if Obafemi replaces Eddie Thorpe in the Last Chance Iron Survivor qualifier match? Well, if this does happen, I believe Oba will go on to win the match and demolish everyone at Deadline to become the Iron Survivor. But would this translate to gold? Well, tell me, what if CM Punk had faced Gunter at Survivor Series? Well, had this happened, I believe the match would have been an absolute barnstormer, although in the end, after 20 minutes of utter brilliance, Gunther would make Punk pass out. But where would this leave Priest? Well, following Survivor Series, that would be when he would reinsert himself into Gunther's life, setting up their rematch at Saturday night's main event. But who would win? Well, tell me. What if WWE pushed Zelina Vega? Well, I believe this would involve her being a consistent main event act, that she could have a long-term program with Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez, and if booked properly, she could even become one of the top babyface stars in the women's division on Raw, alongside Rhea Ripley. But would she win the world title? Well, I want your opinion. So tell me, what if Raw was involved in crowning the inaugural Women's United States Champion? Well, in my opinion, I believe the finalists for the new championship could have been Lyra Valkyria and Chelsea Green, with Chelsea obviously being crowned the champ. But do you agree? Well, tell me. Who should retire Goldberg? Well, on the Raw after 2025's Clash at the Castle, I believe Braun Breaker would attack the returning legend, setting up their clash at Money in the Bank, which would be a big meaty match, with Braun tapping out Goldberg with a Steiner recliner. And with that, Bill says his goodbyes to the WWE Universe, before getting jumped by Oba Femi, whose justification for the assault is the fact that Goldberg has robbed young Todd of opportunities. Therefore, Goldberg doesn't say goodbye until SummerSlam, where he faces Oba Femi with him putting the future over on his way out the door, and this time, he retires for good. But who do you think should retire Goldberg? Well, tell me. What if Rhea Ripley never got injured? Well, had her program if Liv Morgan continued, I believe it would have reached its finale at Survivor Series, with Rhea dethroning Liv, which would then set up her WrestleMania program against the winner of the 2025 Women's Royal Rumble match, Io Sky. But who would win? Well, tell me. What if Rhea Ripley didn't return for War Games? Well, if the babyfaces needed a fifth member, I believe Kairi Sane would be a perfect addition to the match, as the spotlight would have been on Kairi, although if either of them are available, I think either Becky Lynch or Charlotte Flair would also be great additions to the match, as the star power would be matched even with Rhea's absence. But who would you have added? Well, tell me. What if Sami Zayn had turned heel on Roman Reigns? Well, if this happened, I believe Sami would reunite with Kevin Owens, as they refuse to forgive the bloodline and hate all those that do. So with this, Kevin and Sami would dethrone the Motor City Machine Guns in a classic match on the SmackDown before Saturday night's main event, where Sami Zayn would go one-on-one with Roman Reigns, with Zayn getting his own win back from 2023. And following this, Owens and Zayn would enter into a feud with the Usos and the New Bloodline, resulting in a triple threat tag team ladder match at WrestleMania 41. But who would win? Well, tell me. What if Sheamus had dethroned Braun Breaker? Well, had this happened, I believe we would see regular bangers by Sheamus, as he'd mix it up with the likes of Ludwig Kaiser and Dirty Dominic Mysterio, although eventually he would drop the championship to none other than John Cena. But who would dethrone Big Match John? Well, tell me. What if Sheamus never got injured in 2023? Well, if the Celtic Warrior was still producing regular bangers in the back half of 2023, I believe Sheamus would have gone into the Royal Rumble with his goal being to challenge Gunther for the Intercontinental Championship after the Ring General had constantly denied him a rematch, and at the Rumble, his hopes would have been crushed by Gunther, who would have eliminated the Celtic Warrior. And after this, Sheamus and Gunther's long-standing rivalry would begin to escalate, with Sheamus only getting a match at WrestleMania 40 when he puts his career on the line. And at the biggest show of the year, after years of trying to finish his own story, he finally does it. But who would dethrone Sheamus? Well, tell me. What if Shinsuke Nakamura didn't disappear off SmackDown? Well, I believe he would have perfectly slotted in as a strong heel in the mid-card division, as he could feud with LA Knight over the United States title, although he'd come up short. But tell me, what if Stardust never existed? Well, had Cody Rhodes stayed as himself, I believe he would have stayed as a reliable mid-carder, and he could have even had a brother versus brother match with Dustin Rhodes at WrestleMania. But would he still be released in this timeline? Well, tell me. What if Austin Theory had turned face at the end of the summer? Well, if the teasers paid off with Theory splitting off from Grayson Waller sooner than our timeline, I believe the feud would be put to bed on Bad Blood, with Theory standing tall. And after this, he would begin to set his sights on the United States Championship, and he'd subsequently feud with Carmelo Hayes, with their program culminating at the biggest show of the year, with Theory dethroning Melo. But tell me, what if Tiffany Stratton cashes in on Liv Morgan at Survivor Series? Well, if we get swerved with Tiffy Time going to Raw, I believe she would retain her title against Io Sky before rekindling her rivalry with her returning Becky Lynch, which would culminate at WrestleMania with Tiffany getting payback from their previous rivalry in NXT. But who would take down Tiffy Time? Well, tell me. What if Tiffany Stratton cashes in on Nia Jax at Survivor Series? Well, if this does happen, then I believe Tiffany and Nia would face off at Saturday night's main event with Tiffy Time reigning supreme. Although after this, a certain queen would make her return, setting the seats for their inevitable clash for WrestleMania 41. But who would win? Well, tell me. What if Tiffany Stratton never became Miss Money in the Bank? Well, if she was knocked off the ladder by Chelsea Green, I believe Io Sky would have also knocked Chelsea off the same ladder and become the second ever women's wrestler to win the Money in the Bank briefcase twice. When would she cash in? Well, in my opinion, I think she would announce her cash in ahead of time in a big time match at WrestleMania 41 against none other than the Women's World Champion Rhea Ripley. But who would win? Well, tell me. What if Akira Tozawa becomes serious? Well, if he were to ever turn on Otis, I believe he would be a phenomenal mid-card act, and he could even have a run as an Intercontinental Champion. But do you agree? Well, tell me. What if the Usos go their separate ways following Survivor Series? Well, I believe that although Jimmy would be a comedic lackey to the Tribal Chief, Jay would continue to shine as the biggest babyface on Raw, with him possibly challenging Gunther for the World Heavyweight Championship. But would he win? Well, tell me. What if DIY never reformed? Well, I believe Johnny Gargano would be a reliable mid-card act on SmackDown, whereas Tommaso Ciampa would be a psycho killer once more, as this would propel him up the card to the point where he could eventually feud with Drew McIntyre following Survivor Series, which would lead into a WrestleMania program between the two unhinged wrestlers. But tell me, who should be crowned the new WWE Women's Tag Team Champions? Well, I believe WWE should set up a tag team gauntlet match for Saturday night's main event, which would come down to Bayley and Naomi, who started the match, and the last duo to enter the match, them being Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez. And in the end, Naomi would pin Liv Morgan to crown herself and the role model as the new Women's Tag Team Champions. But who would dethrone them? Well, tell me. What if WWE introduce a Women's Intercontinental Championship for Raw? Well, if this does happen, I believe a tournament should be decided to crown the inaugural champion, which would come down to Alba Fyre and Kairi Sane, with Dakota Kai returning and assisting Kairi Sane to become the inaugural Women's Intercontinental Champion.